2, 3, and we're live. Okay, people. Another podcast on the Agflix platform. And, okay. I don't know how to start because this one I really didn't expect that. So for people listening, I'm sorry you're not going to see what I'm about to show you. But for people watching, do you know this phone? Or this one? Probably not. Or yeah, you should. So I have an amazing group of guys in front of me, 2 amazing software engineers, and they're part of the company called Fairphone. And I invited them because I saw the release of the Fairphone 3. That was the main thing that triggered my curiosity. And at Hackages, I have engineers that have the Fairphone 2. And I saw them how they were dismantling the phone. And I was like, this is cool. And like, yeah, I can repair my phone myself. So I wanted to know more. And apparently, I found out that they're in Amsterdam. So yes, we're in Amsterdam today. And I have Maarten and Agnès with me.
Nice to meet you.
And I thank you again for coming here. So I'm going to introduce Fairphone, the way I my research, like whatever my research gave me, and then I give you time to explain a little bit further the mission and what you're working on. And I wanted to dive on the technical challenges you're having at the company on building such an amazing product. Okay, so Fairphone. My research showed me that Fairphone is a small company, but building a huge product. So the way I put it is like small team plus big impact. That's amazing. And you have the company is community driven, open source minded. So that's something that helps you build the software with a small company, but the support of an uncountable number of people around the world. And you have 4 main goals as a company. So the first one is changing the working condition for people in the supply chain of your product. Reusing and recycle. It's one of the things that's the second part of your goals. So, and the third one is long-lasting design, meaning long-lasting product design. That's the area you guys are working and focusing on. And the last one is fair material. And the name of the company is Fairphone. So, let me. That's what I have for now. I can just go much longer, but I want you to jump in and tell me more about you first, and then the company and how you end up being working at this company. What was the main driven purpose for you there? So welcome again, Agnès.
Thank you.
I give
Thanks
you
for the invitation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm Agnès Crepet. I'm French, as you can hear, and I joined the company 1 year ago. I have a background in software engineering, and I've been working in this field for the last 17 years. I launched my own company in France with some people, mostly based on software. So because we were 4 developers.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I wanted to have this kind of impact within the electronic industry, and this is why I joined Fairphone, because you don't have a lot of companies like that, especially in Europe. And we were open with my family to have a foreign experience. So yeah, this is why I joined Fairphone 1 year ago.
Wow.
And for me, that company is just amazing, because this company is changing the electronic industry to reduce the e-waste, etc. And that's a huge step for me, because I had to leave my country, and at 40 years old, but it was my first foreign experience. So not easy, but quite an amazing experience for me.
That's a great. That's amazing. I left my company for a mission that I care about. So Maarten, tell us more about you.
Yes, I'm Maarten Derks. I'm a tech lead at Fairphone. More specifically, I'm the tech lead of the Fairphone 2 software, which means that I basically drive all Fairphone 2 software-related activities. I've been at Fairphone for about 4.5 years now. It's my first job. I actually wrote my master's thesis in computer science at Fairphone.
Okay.
And after I graduated, I stayed as a junior software engineer. So these days I'm a tech lead. The reason why I joined Fairphone is that 5 years ago I was on my second Android smartphone, and I was actually quite frustrated with these Android smartphones. The first one I had, I used for 4 years in the end, but this was actually quite difficult because there was no software support anymore, there was no hardware support anymore. There's bloatware on the phones. They become slow. And I was just frustrated with this ecosystem, and I was playing around by myself already as a hobby, and trying to see how I could work around this, how I could try to improve things, how I could use open source alternatives, and that's basically how I rolled into Fairphone, because Fairphone was also trying to address some of these things. So that's how I ended up at Fairphone.
That's a very good match. Like you arrive and then this company is building a software. I'm gonna call it a software, like a modular software, from the electronic part to basically the chain of product that goes into this thing. So let's talk about the one of the goals of Fairphone is a long-lasting design. That's where actually you're making an impact there. Can you tell us more about the philosophy behind that goal?
Yeah, so the first idea is to be able to have some hardware modularity and to facilitate the repairability of your device. Because, a lot of people have to change their phone just because they broke their screen. So if we do want to reduce the e-wastes, we have to find a way to facilitate this repairability.
Is there a way we can open this? I will just show that.
For sure.
Which one? This one? It was this one? Yeah. I will just show, because you just mentioned the fact that if your phone, you have an Android or whatever, your phone breaks, most of people just go and you might have to change your phone. But with this phone...
So, you can open it. First of all, you can change very easily the battery and the screen and all the modules, as you can see here. Yeah. And that's more or less the same thing for Fairphone 3, of course. And what is the goal behind that? The goal is pretty simple. We want to make the phones last longer. That's the idea. So, of course, the hardware modularity is helpful on that. And it's also a matter of making the software last longer.
Okay, so but when you're talking about having the material last longer, you have a lot of issues that come right there. You have a small team, but you're also having software that you don't really own or you don't have control over it. So if the software get updated, you might have to go and update the software as well, and then end up having a phone that is, people have to change it because the design was really taught on a specific version or probably 2-3 version, and then suddenly you have to make a big change. How do you handle that? How do you design this product to adjust to those changes, possible impact?
Yeah, so it's indeed like our product consists of hardware and software, and the two are connected. They can't live without each other. Our phones run Android.
Yeah.
And the way it works is that basically Android is maintained by Google. Google releases new Android versions through the Android open source project. Companies like Qualcomm that design and develop chipsets for smartphones, they take this source code, they make sure it runs on their hardware, and then companies like Fairphone, they buy a chipset, they buy different components, they take over the source code, and they start to integrate all the different hardware components until you have a working phone. However, at some point, your chipset vendor will stop supporting the chipset in your phone. And then you're sort of stuck. This is basically where software support usually stops. So on average, the average Android phone has software support for about, let's say, 2 years.
2 or 3 years maximum.
Yeah.
And then it usually stops. And the main reason for that is that basically the chipset vendor stops supporting the chipset in that phone. However, we want a phone that lasts longer than 2 years,
Yeah.
let's say 5 years, or maybe 6 or 7 years, ideally. So at some point you will face this challenge. And with Fairphone 2,
you had Fairphone 2, as you mentioned, started with version
Android 5.
5.
And then at version 7, you had that issue with Qualcomm. Can you tell us more about?
So indeed, we released the phone with the Fairphone 2 with Android 5. We did an upgrade to Android 6 about a year later, I think, which was still fully supported by the chipset vendor. But then support stopped. And we want to continue supporting the phone. We want to continue providing bug fixes. We want to continue providing security support. And that inevitably means that you need to go to higher Android versions.
And why? Because at one point Google is stopping also their support.
Okay. Yeah. It's basically on Android 7. Then you're stuck with it, and the chip manufacturer isn't supporting it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The end of life of Android 7, for example, is January next year.
Okay.
So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. What we did to get Android 7 working, because all of a sudden this middleman is missing, the chipset vendor that does the Android modifications that allow you to run a certain Android version.
Yeah.
What we did there was quite unique, I think. Something that we have always done as Fairphone with the Fairphone 2 is publish as much source code as we legally can.
Yeah.
For those parts that we can't publish source code for, we publish binaries.
Okay.
And with those two things combined, users can build their own operating system for the Fairphone 2 if they want. Now, fast forward in time, there's communities like the Lineage OS community, the Ubuntu Touch community, the Sailfish OS community that use this source
software,
code, this information to make their operating system run on the Fairphone 2 as well. And for example, Lineage OS was already on Android 7 when we were still on Android 6. So when it was our turn to work on Android 7, what we did is we took their source code as a foundation, and we built on top of that in order to release Android 7.
That is the beauty of open source. We need to pinpoint that part, saying like you having being part of a company of 70 plus people.
Yeah.
Let me put it again, 70 plus people.
It's not a lot.
And then it's not, I'm not talking about the whole engineering team. I'm talking about the whole company. And then you have to build this product, which is, it seems that simple when you dismantle it like that, but it's a complex piece of software. And then because you have this open source mindset, you have the community that can jump in and help you with whatever problem they have, not your problem, but their problem, and they end up at some point being your problem. And that's what you mentioned, like you were able to bring that back.
Yeah, exactly.
With Fairphone 2, the idea was, of course, to be able to empowering the communities, because, of course, in the end, we need this kind of communities to make our phone last longer. That's the idea, and that's also an alternative for our end users to be able to use another OS. For example, this one, I did the demo just before the podcast, but one of the phone you can see here is running eFoundation. eFoundation is done by a company in France, and this operating system is an Android-based system, but with a lot of application, not like Gmail or Maps, etc. But you can have some alternatives outside Google, and that's the idea. And a lot of people do have some concerns around privacy. And it's always good to have these systems running on our phones. Okay. And especially, that's the case for Fairphone 2.
Yeah. So the way for people listening or watching, something that is really unique with this, as you mentioned, is the fact that you can just install your own operating system there, and then, like, obviously Android based, because it will probably be the easiest thing. It's open source, and you can there are so many versions out there. But on top of that, there are so many alternatives for Google services, and that's why eFoundation is providing you. It just gives you that different OS, and then on top of that, you bring that modularity on top of it. Can you just dive a little bit more on this modularity aspect of the whole chain of like supplier?
Yeah.
Phone?
One of the things behind Fairphone is our founder, Bas Van Abel, one of his favorite sentence is, if you own the phone, you can open it. That means that, being able to install something else is part of our goal also.
Yeah.
Okay? So this is why having this kind of possibility is very important for us. In a sense, you do have this kind of modularity concerning the software. But, to be completely honest and transparent, if you buy a Fairphone, the normal Android is installed on it.
Yeah.
By default, that's the normal Android because, that's easier for a lot of people to have the normal Android. That we do want to sell a lot of phones because we do want to change the industry.
To be able to build a sustainable company, right?
Exactly. So that's not the by default system, but we just want to let people make what they want and install something else if they want to do that. Yeah. And as discussed just before, that's helpful for us. For the longevity perspective, the software longevity perspective, this is why with Fairphone 2, at least we want to continue to do that.
Okay, so but then when you mentioned, you were mentioning iFoundation, and then I think you said you install you change on your phone, you install iFoundation yourself.
Yeah. So I told you that. This weekend I did that on my phone.
Okay, so meaning that people there, you can just go ahead and install the version of
iFoundation right now is supporting something like 89 devices, and Fairphone 2 is part of them. Okay. So that's pretty easy and pretty common within the Android world to be able to install alternative systems.
That's true.
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty common thing in the Android world that it's possible to install an alternative operating system on your phone. However, the communities behind these alternatives, they work without support from the device manufacturer, basically. So often they're also touching in the dark with regards to certain issues, or they can't get a certain component in the phone working. And I think what we try to do differently is we try to support those communities as much as we can. So, for example, by publishing the source code and the binaries, as I mentioned before, but also by actively engaging with these communities and helping them out with issues, being available for questions, for answers. And I think this is quite unique. And in the end, we also benefit from it ourselves again.
Yeah. But one of the things you mentioned, we're still on the software part, on the OS part. You mentioned Fairphone Open, as one of the OS there. Can you tell us more about this?
So as I mentioned before, we publish source code and we publish binaries, and users can build their own operating system for their Fairphone 2 if they want. However, that's quite a technical process, of course. You need to be at least a little bit of a software engineer to do this. So for those people who still want to benefit from the open platform, we provide a pre-built version of the open source code and the binaries that we publish. And basically it gives you a complete Android, a bare Android, without Google Mobile Services, because we are not allowed to redistribute those.
Okay.
But the same source tree. That's something that we can mention because, as you know, we are rolling out a pure Android system also on Fairphone 2, and that's the same source tree for Fairphone Open. That means that from the security, the stability perspective, that's good compared to other alternatives.
Okay.
It's more stable, for example.
Okay, so what will be? I'm a user. I just bought a Fairphone 3. It's gonna be here in December. I thought it was just you order and then it's here the day after. It's like, no, I have a podcast in a few days. Just deliver that here. It's like, no, you gotta have it in December. So I'm gonna be patient. Then I'm gonna have my phone, and I'm like, I wanna try out to go and customize the phone to my taste. What are the possibilities? Because now you're saying I don't want all these tracking services and all these systems that are basically built to hook us into whatever they want. What are the alternative? How are your phones designed, if I were to put it this way?
We can speak about Fairphone 2 a lot because, we have been maintaining it for the last 4.5 years. For Fairphone 3, that's quite different because your question was about Fairphone 3 because it's new.
Yeah.
The bootloader is unlockable, so that means that you theoretically install something else.
Yeah.
But right now, the communities are not working on that because that's quite new. The phone was launched 3 months ago, so
Indeed.
they need time to work on that. But for Fairphone 2, you do have a lot of possibilities.
Yeah.
That's the point.
So so on your phone, for example, you have which version of the OS running?
I run Fairphone Open.
And me, I run eFoundation.
eFoundation. So what is the alternative for the Gmail? Like for people running Android, the normal Android, they have by default Gmail services, like Google services, or Gmail Maps and stuff like that. What are the alternatives on your side?
So indeed, the Fairphone Open out-of-the-box experience is quite bare bones. For example, there's no App Store on the phone, which is usually your entry point for other applications. But there's also no Maps application, no email application, for example. And we actually do this on purpose because we want people to make these choices by themselves. However, we do offer like a sort of minimum out-of-the-box experience. So there's a setup wizard in there. There's a secure web browsing experience in there. We have support for an alternative app store, F-Droid, which hosts open source applications. And from there on, it's up to the user to make their own choices. And I use, for example, for maps, I use OSM End, which is based on OpenStreetMap.
Yeah.
I use K9 Mail as an email client,
right,
etc. And what you see, and especially on the Fairphone forum, where the community is very active, people are really helping each other out with alternatives. And people make different choices for the applications.
Yeah, that's an interesting. It's when I was a student, we had this open source mindset. Everything was you take source code, you build it yourself, and then you own it in a way. And then has the master branch was diverging, you'd be like, okay, I'm gonna stay on my thing, or you just want to pull and then always stay up to date with the latest thing. You have the same issue in a way, because with Fairphone Open, you went from the Android, right? So how do you keep it? How do you keep that in sync, or do you even do that, like keeping the OS version?
For each release, we are publishing both.
Okay.
The normal version of Android and the Fairphone version.
Fairphone.
That's the point.
Okay.
And that's the main difference compared to other alternative systems, I do think so. eFoundation are quite active regarding the security updates, etc.
Yeah.
But because that's challenging to be able to port your system, etc. Because as I told you just before, that's the same source tree.
Yeah, they share the same foundation, the same source code tree.
Okay.
So if we fix a security vulnerability in Fairphone OS, it's automatically fixed in Fairphone Open as well, and or the other way around. Just at some point they start diverging only by a little bit. So Fairphone OS has the Google applications, for example. Fairphone Open uses Firefox Claro as a default web browser, but the majority of the code is shared.
Okay. I understand better.
And you have to understand that when you ship an Android phone, you have to, like us, Fairphone OS, you have to pass some test suites from Google, right?
Okay.
I don't want to dive into all the technical details, but you do have to pass these test suites, and that's nice, even if, you can think what you want about Google, but anyhow, being able to have this kind of test means that, from a security perspective, from a stability perspective, I can say that, this phone is working. And being able to share this kind of source between both of the US is not that bad.
Interesting, yeah. So far, we mentioned the phone, like the device, the electronic part, putting things together, dismantling them, and then putting them back together. But that is just part of what you have to do every day. There is this other software engineering building platform to support support this entire company and this entire software life cycle. So who's doing that? Like 70 people, who is doing that part? Tell me. What are the challenges there to basically make sure that on top of having these challenges, there is this other thing that needs to be?
Indeed, we rely on quite some custom infrastructure actually to facilitate our work. So we need to have code hosting, we need to make builds, we have a test infrastructure, and of course they're all connected to each other. And actually we're working quite closely with the IT team on this one, with the IT administrator who is helping us out a lot to make sure that these systems stay up to date, that they stay working, that they stay connected. But it's quite, throughout the years we've built up quite some custom infrastructure to facilitate all this work that we do indeed.
I don't know if you know the DevOps area, but that's something big for Fairphone because we need to keep the control on the OS, so that means that we have to make sure that the OS is working, etc. So we have to run the test, etc. Even if we do have some partners who can do the code itself, meaning that saying that we need this kind of infrastructure. That means that internally we do have this kind of skills and expertise.
So let me take it this way. You have your company, 70 plus people, and then you have a range of services around you that help your company, partners that help you run the thing. And then within your company, you have this DevOps mindset that helps you build and ship things at as needed, right? I believe, because that's what people aim for when they start diving into agile methodology and DevOps as a whole thing. What is the let me rephrase a little bit my question. I want to dive into the how do you choose, because you have a mindset, you have an open mindset, you have you build a company that is Fairphone, like the name says it all. So basically every single choice you make has to embed your vision, your values. So I will say that's difficult when you need to choose partner. How do you do that? What are the difficulties there, and how do you make sure that you're always in line with your values?
Yeah, so that's a big challenge, and it's not only technical, because one of our key area is being able to improve the working condition within the whole supply chain, as you explained at the beginning of the podcast. That means that we have to have some partners which are open to let us check that. And that's the point. That's not easy with every partner. So for example, the company behind Fairphone 3, we do have a factory in China, for example. They have to be okay to let us check if the working conditions are good for their employees. Yeah. So that's not easy, but that's a key point to change the industry.
Okay.
And more or less, if we are doing that, the idea behind is, perhaps other manufacturers could do that. Okay. This factory is not working only for us. That means that they can, work for another manufacturer with the same condition.
Okay. So how do you check that? How do you make sure that...
We are making some audits. So we do have some people in the company. In front of you, you have the software engineers, but we have some people here in Amsterdam checking that.
Okay.
We have a team working with some mining companies in Africa. We have one guy checking the audit part within the factory in Asia. That's huge. Because as you said, we are not so big, but that's doable. And the idea is if we can show, if we can sell our phones, if we can find our customers, we can show that it's doable. We can show that we can change this industry.
Okay.
It's not only a matter of, reduce the e-waste, etc. It's also a matter of, improving the conditions for these workers.
Okay.
And that's something.
It's really hard. I don't know if you realize the challenge right there. It's really hard because I do read a lot, and one of the things that I discover behind a lot of companies and stories, companies with ambition to being like a change maker in the world. They start with this vision, and then at some point they realize that it's harder than they thought, and then they just fall back into, okay, let's just make money and let's just continue treating people around us, like narrowing the scope of the impact they can have. Yours, as I can see, it's broad. Like there are a lot of people that could be impacted there. So my view is the phone is used as, the thing, the device everyone needs. So let's ship that to people. But then everything around that is actually your main mission, if I were to say, because whatever you mention as the four goals are, there's nothing related to a phone, really. If that's my point of view, there is nothing related to a phone, but the phone is the most visible.
Yeah, but making a phone,
yeah,
which help us to show that it is doable.
Yeah, but then I can take a car and drop it there as a product, and still be able to. You see what I'm trying to say?
The phone it's a vehicle to tell a story, basically.
Tell the story.
And back then, the smartphone was chosen because it's such a personal device.
Yeah.
Like your entire life is in it. But we
yeah.
could have also chosen a TV or a fridge or any kind of consumer electronics product, basically. And a lot of the work that we do also does apply to these other products as well. And
okay,
we're trying to change the industry from the inside out, actually, by making a phone.
Yeah, there are a lot of like when people ask what is the main mission of a company, or what is your main what do you sell, what is the thing you're selling to people, I guess you will say a phone. Is that
we
accurate?
are selling a phone, but with this idea to change the electronic industry.
Yeah,
that's the point.
Yeah. I don't know where I got that. I was reading about these missions. Like company will say, we're selling that experience to people. But behind the scene, here are the real mission, the real stories. Because the phone is just, as you mentioned, the vehicle. I really like that. Let me go back on the challenges day by day, because we're just human beings. We want to have our food, and what are the most difficult challenges today, as a company, to maintain that mindset within the company, from the hiring part to delivering the software? What are the because I'm asking you that because as a founder, I want to build a fair company. That's one of my main thing at Hackages, and I just let people be whoever they are and bring their best every day. But you're gonna have off days. People are not in the best thing, but those are regardless of the mission, you still have those human thing that you need to deal with every single day, still keeping in mind the broader vision. So how do you deal with that? What are the challenges for you, especially you as a manager? Mm-hmm. How do you?
Yeah, for sure, we do have some challenges, but the main difference between Fairphone and other companies I worked for before is the motivation. I mean, you do have some passionate people here. That's huge. That's a huge change compared to other companies.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that we don't have to choose some priorities, etc. We still have these challenges. But my feeling is at Fairphone, we have these motivated people. And everybody is more or less ready to change their rituals, their habits, etc. So that's a huge point. And the recruitment, you asked for this kind of information. Yeah, it's not easy, of course, because especially within Amsterdam, for example, being able to have some technical people, software engineers, etc., that's quite expensive, blah, 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 etc. But I mean, a lot of people here, especially here in the Netherlands, I think we are thinking about that. What is the impact on our daily work? So more and more, what I do see right now is more and more people are thinking about that and want to be involved in this kind of project. Not only Fairphone, and speaking about ethics in tech. I mean, you do have this kind of people, not 100% of the software engineers, but you do have this kind of mindset. And especially in Amsterdam. I'm French, and I do see that also in France, so I'm quite optimistic about that. And that's not easy, but that's doable. With the passion and and we want to be profitable, to show that we have the path within this industry to change the world. And that's the magic of Fairphone, because at least all the people who join the company do share this kind of vision, do share this kind of goal. And that's a huge difference, compared to working for a bank. You know what I mean? I do see within Fairphone this entrepreneur mindset. It's not only passion, but also this kind of entrepreneur mindset.
Yeah. On the one hand, we're a company like any other company, and we need to make a profit. Otherwise, we would be an NGO. So we also need to hire and work, as any other company does. But at the same time, we're a social enterprise. We're purpose driven, and you do see this drive a lot in people. And like I think both of us experience it every single day. And it's just this extra. It gives you this extra motivation, this extra drive. You're doing it for a good cause, and it's very motivating to be in between all these people that share the same goal and work on the same.
I've never experienced that kind of ecosystem before, and when you invited me, I did want to have Maarten with me, because this kind of people working at Fairphone for the last 5 years, that's just amazing.
Yeah,
and you can see a lot of people like Maarten at Fairphone.
I want to get the story, like some nuts there, like some nice things. So look, I want you. There's probably a story there, or it's probably not that amazing, but when Fairphone reached out to you, I don't know how that happened, like. And then the decision making process for you is like, I'm going there, because it was a big deal for you, moving your family and everything. So can you tell us that if it's possible?
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
It's okay. Like how it happened, because then I can see how passionate you are. You're really into the thing. So then I'm sure there is something. You just don't move your family from France to here like that. What is the story, if any?
Yeah. So. No recruitment companies contacted me. I simply applied for the job. Like,
you did apply.
Seriously?
Oh wow!
Okay.
Like there's some amazing software engineer just go that online and I'm gonna apply to that company.
No, seriously,
wow.
I followed Fairphone a lot for sure. So I was very interested in that company, etc. And as I told you, I wanted to change also my daily work, even if I was pretty happy in France, because I launched my own company with some friends.
As well,
I was a teacher in a software engineering school, teaching coding, etc. So and I had 2 babies, very young babies. So my life in France was very nice. Yeah. But when I saw this job proposal within the Fairphone website, I was like, wow, my goodness, that's for me. And more or less, But of course, my family was okay to move. I cannot say that. Okay, I changed the life of all my family. The father of my kids was completely okay with that. We were open to have a foreign experience. We did a world tour 6 years ago without our kids, because our kids were not here. Yeah. But so the father of my kids was completely open to do that. So. Yeah. It was not that difficult for me, but for me, as I told you, you do not have a lot of companies like Fairphone in Europe. And I was ready to move in Europe, not especially ready to move in Asia or in the US, for example. I didn't want to work in US at all. For other reasons. In Asia, why not? But in the US, not at all. So, I didn't have a lot of inspiring companies, and Fairphone was part of this kind of companies. Yeah. And I applied. Trust me. Yeah. And then I had several interviews, and I just have to prove that I can do the job, and I try to show my passion, etc.
And today you the one, because if you need to grow your team or you need engineer, you will probably be the one also being in the chain of like, let me get people and make sure that those people are inspired and they want
sure.
to be. So that's now you're on the other side of things.
I have to convince Maarten to stay in my team.
So I let you have that conversation. Let's go ahead. Yeah. Okay.
No, but that's my role also to recruit some people. I had to do that before, and but as I told you, that's not easy for sure. But yeah.
Yeah,
but that's so difficult because we are Fairphone, and you can find this kind of people.
Yeah. Interesting.
Because we are purpose driven. That's the point. So
because I saw your background when I reached out to you. I saw your background and I was like, I want to talk to you, but also as part of the Fairphone story, I wanted to know more, and then I saw like, you really have an impressive background, and I thought, okay, that's the person that I need to talk to. But then now you're telling me you actually applied. That's blow my mind, because most company would just have like a headhunter, like go ahead, headhunter, no, like a recruiter, go ahead, and then trying to find these kind of people. And that's amazing. That gives me another perspective on the company itself, because you just don't go like that.
We attract people like Agnès. Basically, we see that a lot in the interviews that we do, and I think other teams see it as well.
Yeah.
We do attract a certain type of people with a certain motivation, and this is also something that we do actively search for in people, among other skills, of course.
Okay, so that now I can actually see like 70 plus people. It's like a well curated group of people. I can see that, because people just say, we need engineer, we just hire as like a bunch of them, and then you end up stuck because you didn't do the job of hiring like a creme de la creme, if I were to say that way. But really inspiring. Is there anything you want to, like we cover already a lot of topics. We can go further on other things, but could you quickly touch on the last? So we talk about changing the working condition, even if it's not part of your team, but still you work on we touch on that. Yours is long-lasting design. Could you quickly touch on the fair material and reusability and the recycle thing? Like quickly, what are?
Yeah, so fair materials is mostly about the resources that are being mined, the minerals that are being mined that end up in the phone, like tin, tantalum, gold. And we try to make sure that these supply chains are as fair as possible.
Yeah, so
meaning that the mines where these resources are gathered are not in conflict areas, that there's no child labor, for example. And we've actually secured, for a couple of the minerals in the phone, we've actually secured fair supply chains.
Okay.
With regards to the working conditions, so we have, the factory that produces the Fairphones.
Yeah, that one we touch on, the fact that you obviously have even audit people that go and audit this part, but then you have the reuse and recycle.
So for sure, we want to reduce the e-waste.
Yeah.
So a good way to do that is to use recycled materials, and this is what we are doing.
Okay.
Not only on the phone itself, but also for the cover, etc. So we try to do that.
Yeah, and on the reuse part, phones often end up somewhere in a drawer at your home when you stop using them, while they might still be perfectly fine. So pass it on to your family members, for example. We try to continue supporting the phone so that it can be longer lasting. It doesn't need to end up in the drawer. So before it gets recycled, it should first be used as long as possible.
Okay.
And we are recycling. I mean, if you buy a Fairphone, you can give us your old phone, and we can make sure that this phone will be recycled.
What is the longest life cycle you encounter from your customer for the phone? The longest they spend on with your phone?
I know that there's so for sure Fairphone, there's plenty of Fairphone 2 users still around. I think we have about 65,000, and the phone was released in December 2015. There's also people around who still use Fairphone 1. We don't support Fairphone 1 anymore.
Okay.
But there's still people out there. Those are the real diehards, I would say, who are still using a Fairphone 1, which is from even earlier.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what will be in a few keywords? What will be the difference for you between Fairphone 3 and Fairphone 2 and Fairphone 3?
That's more or less the same goal. Of course,
Yeah.
we improved a lot the stability and the quality of the device,
Yeah.
I would say like that, because of course we learned a lot. Between Fairphone 1 and Fairphone 2, you had this huge gap regarding the quality, and that's more or less the same for Fairphone 3.
Yeah.
So that's the point. If we want to change the electronic industry, we have to be better.
Yeah.
So we have to improve continuously the quality of our product.
But we have what, like a 4 years? December 2015. We're almost.
We aim
in
for
December.
at least 5 years, and
Yeah.
let's
So
see if we can do more.
That's much longer than the average in the industry.
For sure, you can see some numbers from some studies, and that's quite unique. A lot of manufacturers stop the support after, as you said, Maarten, after 3 years.
Yeah, impressive.
So 4 years is quite unique. Imagine 5 or 6.
Yeah. What is if I were to ask you? So just a few last questions there. If I were to ask you, you go every day. You are inspired by the mission. You're inspired by the company you work for. Who's the most inspiring person that work around you at the company, or someone that inspire you every day to, or probably do your job, or just be part of that thing?
For me personally, it's those 65,000 people that are still using the Fairphone 2. Those people inspire me every day. They actually use our products, and they try to take them as far as we want them to take the products. And for me, that's just the best motivation to do my daily work, to continue working on security fixes for Fairphone 2, to continue working on bug fixes. It's the community out there, our customers, our users. They're simply amazing.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I agree on that point. And for me, I would like to add another point. My team members. I mean, I met this kind of people, 25, 30 years old, with this kind of huge backgrounds, technical backgrounds. Still motivated to work here with this kind of technical challenges. We spoke about that during this podcast.
Yeah.
But just amazing. So
Great.
they help me to be motivated. Every day, basically.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap up. What we usually do here at Hackages, like iFlix, I say Hackages, but it's the same thing. What we usually do during the podcast is to ask, obviously, those inspiring, like who inspires you and stuff like that. But I'm not gonna do that here in a sense, like we really cover Fairphone as a company, not really you as a person, but I still want you to have like a last words, like what would be, if you were to advise people or tell people whatever it is that can inspire them to do good out there, what will be your take?
From a software perspective, at least for me, it would be join the open source communities. There's so much to learn there. There's so much to contribute. And as I've mentioned before, it's quite a big part of our efforts. So if you're into software, if you like to work on projects, go out there, find an app, find whatever you like, and join.
Yeah, and more or less the same for me. When I was a teenager, I was completely hooked on Linus Torvald, the creator of Linux, and this kind of people helped me a lot to be inspired and to make my path within this industry.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
I like that. So we have it. I'm just gonna quickly close. I had some closing words there. So I want to thank you again for coming, for allowing me to spend some time with you.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so hopefully we whenever I have my phone and I start playing with it, and I will have more questions for you, so don't be surprised that someone's gonna knock at your door, and then it's like, hey, I have my phone and I have this issue. Can you, Maarten, can you help me fix this? Because now I have a direct
Always
access
here.
to you.
Yes.
I would do that. So thanks again for sharing those stories with us, and for people watching and listening. This is another podcast of on Adflix, and we invited the people from Fairphone to talk about the company, the challenges, but mostly from the software engineering point of view. And so hopefully that inspires you to go out there and do great stuff. Open source is one of the main things that they put forward, like a 70 people company that have the benefit of having the community, the open source community, to come and jump and help build this amazing phone. So thank you for that. The main things that I took away from it was like building something that lasts longer than the usual product, and open source. Share that, leave it open, and let other people jump in. So thanks again for coming.
Thanks, David.
Thanks.
We have it.
Bye.
Okay, thanks, Maarten.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks again.